WINFM. Better music, better talk, better radio.
You're on the best radio station, you know.
Yes, you don't have to tell me that. I know. WinFM, of course.
I'm listening, honey. I am listening.
98.9 WinFM.
Lord, this can end in a serious dilemma. Now that the country been run by labor, this pure mayhem, scandal, disorder. With this Labour Party in power, is this a social club in disguise? Or some kind of criminal enterprise? What a menace to society. This administration turning out to be the PM that a so-called advisor, telling people how to get away with murder. It's non-stop attack on the treasury with paper daddy and man with sorry. This Labour bunch shot to the core, lacking integrity, that's for sure. Economists all hard life crippling, we a collective menace, menace to society. It's like it's all cheap and no Indian. It's like lunatics running the asylum without a plan, ideas or structure. It's the people who left to suffer. No pub, no peace, clear unemployment. No money for bills, much less enjoyment. Total advantage, that's we fake under these enemies of the state. AAG, dedicate lawyer, he really a proper plain labor third politician now for sure. Going from door to door in number 4, law and order not a priority. No one in charge of the nation's safety. DAG join the cult of the greedy. We just a menace to society. Government buildings, well them the worst. We infrastructure seem like it costs. Electricity and water up with the moon. Every month you hear the fix coming soon. Under labor life for this pure misery. Oppression, depression and tyranny. This gang is a menace to society. Life in SKN, this ain't no joke. Like the whole country growing up is smoke. While Mr. Smiley and 10 money one busy fighting, jockeying for position. Lord have mercy upon all of we. With this menace to society. Lord, this can end in a serious dilemma. Now that the country been run by labor, this pure mayhem, scandal, disorder. With this Labour Party in power, is this a social club in disguise? Or some kind of criminal enterprise? What a menace to society. This administration turning out to be the PM that a so-called advisor, telling people how to get away with murder. It's non-stop attack on the treasury with paper daddy and man with sorry. This Labour bunch shot to the core, lacking integrity, that's for sure. Economists all hard life crippling, we a collective menace to society. It's like it's all cheap and no Indian. It's like lunatics running the asylum without a plan, ideas or structure. It's the people who left to suffer. No pub, no peace, clear unemployment. No money for bills, much less enjoyment. Total advantage, that's we fake under these enemies of the state. AAG, dedicate lawyer, he really a proper plain labor third politician now for sure. Going from door to door in number 4, law and order not a priority. No one in charge of the nation's safety. DAG join the cult of the greedy. We just a menace to society. Government buildings, well them the worst. We infrastructure seem like it costs. Electricity and water up with the moon. Every month you hear the fix coming soon. Under labor life for this pure misery. Oppression, depression and tyranny. This gang is a menace to society. Life in SKN, this ain't no joke. Like the whole country growing up is smoke. While Mr. Smiley and 10 money one busy fighting, jockeying for position. Lord have mercy upon all of we. With this menace to society. Government buildings, well them the worst. We infrastructure seem like it costs. Electricity and water up with the moon. Every month you hear the fix coming soon. Under labor life for this pure misery. Oppression, depression and tyranny. This gang is a menace to society. On SKN, this ain't no joke. Like the whole country growing up is smoke. While Mr. Smiley and 10 money one busy fighting, jockeying for position. Lord have mercy upon all of we. With this menace to society. enemies of the state. Lord of
Good
mercy,
evening to
under the
everyone.
weight of the
I
lies,
trust that
they
everyone
their
is having a
show.
wonderful
They got to
evening.
go.
I
You got to go. These menace to society, them are enemies of the state.
with me this evening, and they are joining via Zoom. I have Miss Rolise Brooks, and I also have Peter Wickham. This is a show where we have conversation on political issues, national issues, and of course there are some persons who would have thought that it might have been unwise to have such a panel here this evening, considering what some might think Peter Wickham to be anti-PAM. But I love to engage in tough conversations. In fact, I think tough conversations bring out the best in each one of us. And as an aspiring candidate and MP, there will be room for tough conversations. Tough conversations are part of the game. And so I welcome my guests this evening. We're going to have a very interesting discussion. We're going to be talking about the political landscape ahead. We recognize that the Labour Party won the general elections in 2022. And since then, they have been failing the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. This administration, the Labour administration, is an administration that is self-serving and selfish. And of course, the election is soon ahead, and we know that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis will not be fooled twice. In fact, this administration has been performing worse than any other administration before. And so we know that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis will not make the same mistake twice. Without any further ado, I welcome my guests. We have Rolise Brooks, who is the founder of Political Aside, and she is currently a student at the UWI. We have also Mr. Peter Wickham, who is a political analyst. So Peter, Rolise, can you guys hear me?
Hearing you loud and clear. Good evening. Good evening to Bastia. Or is it good evening to Nevis? I'm not sure which one it is.
Well, it's both. It's St. Kitts and Nevis.
And Nevis. All right. So yeah, good evening, and we're hearing you loud and clear. It's good to be on with you, and Rolise, it's good to meet you. This is the first time I'm seeing you on a program like this, so yeah, good to be here.
Fantastic. Good evening to St. Kitts and Nevis. Let me wish everyone a happy 2025, and we do look forward to this coming year. May it be prosperous for all of us.
Yes, indeed. Rolise, Peter, I want to say thank you for accepting the invitation to be on Unfiltered here this evening. In fact, we are going to be talking about politics. Unfiltered is a program that we speak and express our opinions. And so we're looking at the political landscape ahead. Rolise, the election held in 2022. The Labour Party victorious. The Labour Party receiving majority of the votes that were cast in St. Kitts and Nevis. What is your view on their performance thus far?
Well, Azad, first of all, I think the facts can speak for themselves. If we take a look at the 2022 SKNLP manifesto, and we take a look at what has been accomplished, and we can give a fairly unbiased and objective scoring there. I'm happy to know that this is unfiltered and we're here to have a discussion, because honestly, it seems as if there has been a war above ground, but people on the ground are suffering, and the battle there is very real. So I am not here to point fingers or to play a blame game. I am here to sound an alarm to every Kittitian and Nevisian to be good to themselves and choose wisely in the next elections. Choose leaders who have a track record that shows they really care about us, the people. Let the rumors go and honor the facts. It has been said that, the unity government has been the best political initiative to have happened to St. Kitts and Nevis. Some may dispute that. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But what I am sure about is that the country already have enemies of its own. We were once the envy of the Caribbean, especially in the OECS. And I think right now, every Kittitian and Nevision, we want that St. Kitts and Nevis back again.
Thank you, Elise. Peter, I know that I was made aware that you had, an interview just recently with Andre Huey. I listened to that interview. I noted your comments. In fact, I have noted your comments in the past as it relates to the performance of the various parties. But Peter, again, like I asked Elise, what is your view on the performance of the Labour Party so far?
Yeah, I mean, Release's analysis of the situation is probably closer to, well, traditionally she is closer to the situation than I am. And I think what I was saying to Andre is that my perspective is that the Labour government seems to have been poking, in cricketing terms. The fours and sixes haven't been there. It has been poking. It seems to have been coping and getting by in terms of the economic situation. Look, coming out of COVID, St. Kitts was on essentially a recovery path, and I think that's the trajectory that people are looking at. You haven't had any major projects in certainly in the time that Labour has been in office. Expansion in tourism and cruising and so on, cruise terminal would have been a unity initiative, which would have essentially come to light more recently. But beyond that, there hasn't been anything significant. And I think one of the disappointing things for a lot of people recently is the fact that you haven't had the double salaries this year, which is something that Kittitians and divisions have gotten accustomed to over the years. So the idea of you can see a government that is scoring fours and sixes hasn't been there. I think that the Labour government has been scoring singles. There are perhaps good reasons why that's the case. The global economy is at a stage where there are very few governments that are doing that well. You saw what happened in the United States, and I think that across the region, across the world, governments are under a lot of pressure simply because they're incumbents, and we are in a situation where the cost of living is skyrocketing globally. Post-pandemic, it's a challenge, and I think that these are the issues which are foremost in people's minds. They go to the supermarket and they see the prices, the capacity to cope. And it's the same in most Caribbean countries, but we're talking here St. Kitts and Nevis, and I think that that's what people are concerned about, that
Yes.
they think the situation here is bad. Having said all of that, though, Azad, and I think I've said this to you privately as well, that if an election were called tomorrow, I am not sure that the same thing would not happen again, because Kittitians and divisions are in a situation where it's as though they don't have a choice. I don't believe that the current configuration of political parties, and this is something that I've well been associated with for a long time, the PAM the PAM PLP and Labour initiative with three parties on St. Kitts. St. Kitts and Nevis together is one of the smallest economies in the world, quite frankly. And then you have on top of that a situation where a country that has one of the lowest populations globally also has the highest number of active political parties. Where you have three functioning political parties in St. Kitts, usually in Nevis, well, in other Caribbean islands, you only have two. I think that if there was an election called now, ultimately people would probably vote for what they see as the only viable option. And the only viable option they see now is a Labour government, because there's really no other option on St. Kitts that's presenting that alternative. And that's a concern that I continue to have.
Well, Peter,
I believe we'll get into that later.
That is your concern, and of course it is your view. As you look at it, the People's Action Movement has been making strive. We have changed. We have elected a new leader. We are celebrating our 60th anniversary this year. In fact, if there's any indication based on our gala, that was a sold-out event. The party is rebuilding The leader has been doing listening tours within the various constituencies. We have been doing pop-up meetings. I note your point, but at the time as it is now, the People's Action Movement is indeed growing and rebuilding. In fact, the political leader in her address at the last convention indicated that her focus at this point in time would be rebuilding the People's Action Movement, ensuring that it is prepared for the next general election. Also, there has been rumors within the on the ground, Peter, where there seems to be some infraction within the Labour Party. There is the Jew Labour, there is the Douglas Labour, and so maybe it may seem from your opinion that the opposition isn't ready. But certainly from the ground, persons have the view that the Labour Party is not ready to contest the election as yet, based on the infractions and based on their lack of performance thus far. In fact, they have said in their manifesto and afterwards that they are going to build 2,400 homes at the end of the five-year period. And there have been no homes constructed. There have been 2 model homes. They said they're going to build 2,400 homes. And homes are something that are important to St. Kitts and Nevis. We do hold housing very important. The economy is slow, Peter. And so I think if push comes to shove, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis will not make the same mistake twice. But of course, you share your opinion, and we're open to other persons sharing their opinion as well.
Well, I guess we'll see.
Well,
We will definitely have to see. And although Azad pointed out some points and facts and reality is, as Peter mentioned, people look for a viable option, right? So if the opposition parties don't seem like they have it together, I mean, they're going to go back to a default. And as I always tell people in my conversations, labor is a system. So you might say, oh, they have infractions. We heard those rumors prior to the 2022 election as well. And there were fightings and there were voice notes. But what? At the end of the day, they come together and they do what they have to do. And that has been Labor's modus operandi for the 93 years of existence. So you can't just look at these little, might be shushu, might be truth, and say, oh, we got them because they're fighting. No. At the end of the day, they understand the system. At the end of the day, this labor system that spreads throughout the Caribbean has backing, and they do send help to one another. So let's not underestimate that system that has already been built up and is quite supported regionally.
Yes, I do agree with you that the Labour Party has been a strong party in the past. In fact, we know that we are not to underestimate the Labour Party's strength, especially when it comes to mobilization. But when I think about manifestos and I think about what their platform would be, I don't think that they are ready, because if they are going to contest an election this year, I know that there are talks about boundary changes. I know that during the time when you do an election, you have to speak based on what you have done. And in fact, if the Labour was to call an election, the PM was to call an election now, what have they accomplished over this period that they could really boast of? What would they say to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis? Oh, we didn't have enough time. Oh, we underestimated the responsibility of government. So my question would be, if they were ready, they would have rang that bell, because the power is in the hand of the Prime Minister. But I don't think that they are ready as well, because I don't think they have anything to stand on at this point in time. Many of their promises are still unfulfilled, even the basic ones. And so I don't think that they're ready for a general election, but only the future will tell what is to come.
Yeah, and again, at the end of the day, and I think that is why it is so important for us to have engagements and conversations like these from persons of different political affiliations, because at the end of the day, the people we are the ones who have to decide, and I don't think we get that quite well, just how much power we actually have. I mean, the destiny of a country really depends on its leadership. War end and begin because of leaders. I mean, we're seeing what is happening in America right now with a new presidency, trade war just flaring up, economies rise and fall under the influence of a leader. Prosperity or poverty hinges on the choices we make, those who we select. And I suppose that in 2022, people kind of fell for the fresh face campaign, the fresh face clean slate. But now when we see actually fresh face, same old dirty laundry. That is what we are seeing now. Fresh face, lazy habits. Fresh face, no kind of people-centered policies. So if people realize what is happening and decide, boy, no, yes, I might have been a labor for how many ever years, but the reality is that these people are not good for country. They're not good for growth. They're not good for me. They're not good for you. And neither are they good for my children.
In
When
fact,
I listen to you guys, I take my mind back to the last election. You had an election in which the Team Unity, with which Palm was a part of, had won an election, a resounding election, one of the highest margins in recent history. The It was a year, just over a year, that had passed since the last election. And the general feeling of people on the ground is that the government had done well. It had kept the situation under control. I had managed the COVID situation, and they had done well. And they even paid double salaries. It wasn't a government that needed to call an election. It wasn't a government that was in trouble. And guess what? When people voted in that election, they didn't vote on the basis of anybody's performance. Because if they were voting on performance, they would have put back in the same Team Unity government, or either one or part of it that was involved. What they did is that they rejected both PAM and PLP because of a level of disunity. And I mean, you can talk about performance. I honestly don't think that performance was high on the list of people. What they wanted is a government to settle down. They did not want government ministers to be shouting at each other in the press and making press statements about each other. They didn't want a situation where you had cabinet ministers not showing up for work for an extended period of time. They want a situation where the police were either supposed or not supposed to be bringing charges against a cabinet minister over some issue, and suggestions that people were being asked to change reports and whatnot. That's what people don't want. And I personally think that you guys shot yourself in the foot. And I think that right now, the question is, do people feel that this current crop of Palm and well, People's Labour Party, are you guys mature enough to put the past behind you and move forward? Because yes, we want a government that performs, but we also want a government that reflects the level of unity. And I think that you're still struggling to demonstrate to people that this is a unified entity that can really take the people somewhere, or will it descend back into squabbling or quarreling in the way that it did in the past? That is my view. I think that's really what people voted on, and I don't accept that it's always a performance assessment. Sometimes it is in politics, but I don't think that the result of the last election, to me, it wasn't an assessment of performance, because Dr. Drew had no record that you could assess him on, right? And the record of Labour had some challenges based on the fact that the last time they were in office, things got a bit out of control. So that would be my concern. But I appreciate that you have a political angle that you're advancing, which is fine. But I still think that when it comes down to it, people want a government that can be cohesive, that could work together, and that could demonstrate the level of political maturity, which was not present on the last occasion that you guys were in office.
well, Peter, I cannot disagree with you at that point, because history will show us that in St. Kitts and Nevis, in fact, when the administration shows any division, that administration going into the election typically, most of the times, all the times rather, lose. We look at the history of St. Kitts and Nevis. We see 1993, where there was some division between People's Action Movement, Michael Powell. We look at the election of 2015. Previously, before that, you had Sam Condor, you had Timothy Harris, you saw some division in the Labour Party. Labour Party was defeated. You go back to 2022, you saw some division. Again, the administration that was ruling defeated. And so it is clear, based on the history, that where there is division, and that division is in the public's domain, that the people tend to vote against that. Release, is there anything you want to say on that point?
I mean, yeah, you have the facts down packed, and it's true. And that is why I stress again on my point that it ends up with a default unless the opposition parties can show a certain level of cohesiveness, either within themselves or with one another. Then the default will be the SKNLP, regardless of whatever shushu might be going on between this Jew and Douglas Labour Party. So it goes back to that point.
I have in studio. Go ahead, Rollies. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, but I was going to say at the end of the day, as I started again, every time this conversation come up, we tend to be so party driven, and we really kind of left out the meat of the matter, which is the people. I look forward to conversations where we talk about real serious issues and solutions, such as the justice system and what is considered as child supportment now that needs to be revised and revamped. How about the issues at JNF? What about the New Deal for the teachers? We need to stop this round and round, rigorosy kind of conversation. And AZARD, along with myself and our peers, I expect us to really take the conversations forward in a real way.
I agree with you, Rollies. In fact, it is very important, I think, as young people. And what I am concerned with is a lot of times we look at parties where persons are part of, and of course the political party structure is there. But at the end of the day, I think that we have to look at country. We have to look at where St. Kitts and Nevis is heading. And as you have said, you have touched some areas of concern. I think when it comes to housing, that's an area of concern. Many persons want to be secure, especially living after university. A lot of persons don't want to go back to their mother's and father's house. They want to construct their own. And when we look at jobs and creation of jobs, we have to be out there. We have to ensure that the environment is fruitful enough. Not only that persons are dependent on government for jobs, but they can create their own jobs. We have to look at how we can propel St. Kitts and Nevis as it relates to the healthcare system. Many of us cannot afford to go overseas for healthcare, and so we have to ensure that the healthcare here is strong enough to support persons who are vulnerable. Many are. And so these are issues that we really have to be concerned of. I hear the Prime Minister talk about sustainable island state, and I often say it's as though he went to some conference, picked up the term, and said we're going to transpose it here in St. Kitts without any plans whatsoever. I would want our Prime Minister to be serious and his party to be serious in showing Kittitians and Nevisians what a sustainable island state is in his view, and when can we achieve this, not just talk about it. And so again, and that's why we have debates and we have conversations like this, regardless of political affiliation, we must meet at the table and we must discuss St. Kitts and Nevis and how best we can meet the needs of our people, because St. Kitts and Nevis is all we have. I have in studio also Troy Flanders, a member of the People's Action Movement and a former candidate as well. Troy, welcome to Unfiltered. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks to the panelists, Ms. Wallis and Mr. Wickham. What I like to say on the conversation, though, that if we study politics seriously, we realize that the Labour Party basically win election on slogans,
Yes.
not on policies and performance, is on slogans. And maybe Peter could correct me if I'm wrong, but if you go back to most election that the Labour Party successful, you check there is a slogan in that election that carries the election. If people in St. Kitts and Nevis have to vote on policies and programs to move the country forward, the Labour Party will never win an election.
That is true. I think of slogans that they had in the past, Troy, progress not promises.
You think about it's working.
Your work.
When you're telling me it's working, you at the same point you bring in VAT and you had to raise electricity, the surcharge, and you're telling me that it was working when it actually was hurting the ordinary man.
And the other one that they had recently, get rid of them, meaning get rid of the social programs that were put in place by Team Unity under the PLP, PAM, and CCM. It means get rid of persons who were contributing to our Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And it meant perhaps get rid of the housing program that we had, because the housing program, many persons are dissatisfied. And again, I stress the housing because people want to feel secure in St. Kitts and Nevis.
That's how I look at it. It's a small percentage of voters which any political party have to sway to win an election. It's a small percentage. You find that PAM, Labour, they got the people, they're going to get maybe about 40% there, and then in the middle, there's a small percentage of people who got to. Okay, for instance, let's look at the election, the last election, 2022.
Yes.
Let's take constituency number 4.
Yes.
The Labour Party candidate won that seat, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at the votes that he got, is where Labour normally go.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you look at the votes between PAM and PLP, you see a serious fall off.
Yes.
Right? In that Labour increased their votes by no large number in that constituency.
Yes.
You see?
Release, Peter, anything that you'd like to add based on what Troy has said?
No, I mean, Troy is saying that Labour is winning on slogans. The point is that Labour is winning, and that's something that I think we can't easily dismiss. I can't accept that none of the elections that Labour has done has been based on performance. There was an election in which Labour won all the seats on St. Kitts. And I think the slogan then was "All Eight is great," but I mean the slogan is pretty vacuous. But
my favorite, all time.
Right, yeah, but in the final analysis, it worked. They win all 8 seats.
All eight is great.
Right, but it worked. As I said, they won all 8 seats. So my thing is, if it is that people want slogans, then maybe that's what you need to work on, because it's clear that that's the case. I personally think it had a lot more to do with the fact that there were some initiatives that were doing well. The All It Is Great year was on the back of a housing boom in St. Kitts and Nevis, which can't be dismissed. So say what you like, people voted for a lot of that, and they voted for it continuing. And at the time, PAM was being led by leadership that people just didn't think was inspiring. So, they voted in that direction. So I don't know that it's all about slogans. I think that there are some realistic performance issues there. And I think that the last election, it was won largely on the basis of, stable government, because you had a government that was formed of people who cannibalize themselves. You have a situation where a vote of no confidence is being brought by someone who is part of a government to bring down that government. And then you are surprised that people say, well, look, we can't put y'all back in to continue this confusion and foolishness. No.
Yeah, but Peter, we've already made the point, yes, that
right. So I'm saying that but let's if we're gonna build the conversation around that, then let's look at that reality and look at the fact that as a priority, I think the component parts of an alternative government have to demonstrate a level of political maturity. I do believe that you guys have made a start, and I acknowledge that. I think that there's leadership on both sides of the opposition that appear to be inspired and ready to move forward and so on. But I think that, you have to essentially bring the square to the circle. So people want to hear, what plans do you have for coalition? They want to hear if you can work together. They want to hear who is running in which seats and which part of the alliance has certain seats and which doesn't have other seats. These
Right.
are some of the details that I think that people are looking for. But yeah, no, B, you can cuss labor, and cuss
So
the
I
initiative.
know
But
the
you gotta remember that in this federation, Labour has won 9 out of 10 elections, pretty much.
well,
So
I
that
disagree
is
with
an
that
enviable
number
track
when you
record
said
in
9 out of
every.
10. In fact, the People's Action
That's
Movement and
that's not a literal
and I know what
comparison.
you I know
Right?
you're exaggerating grossly so, Peter.
Their success
But
rate has been enviable.
but Peter, I'm glad you raised that point because I've heard some of your interviews saying that the People's Action Movement only succeed when there's a coalition. I want to make that clear that the People's Action Movement in 1980 formed a coalition government with the NRP, having won 3 seats in St. Kitts. Labour Party then won the 4 and the NRP the 3, that made the 6. In 1984, the People's Action Movement won a majority 6 seats on St. Kitts, and the Labour Party 2 seats. In fact, the People's Action Movement in 1984 and 1989 could have formed a government on its own, again repeating the number of 6 seats. So, Peter, I just wanted to clarify that the People's Action Movement is a party that is 60 years strong, and that the People's Action Movement is a party that has been built by putting people first, built by the leaders before us, the supporters before us, and that the People's Action Movement, although it is a party open to collaboration to ensure that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis is put first, on different occasions, the People's Action Movement has not only won the greatest number of seats, but also the popular vote.
Azad, okay, thanks for the facts and congratulations on all your winnings, right? I think what Peter is saying is that the way forward is for the opposition parties to get out from behind these screens, out from behind the podiums, and get into the communities and hear the real voices, and then start to put together their individual manifestos and perhaps start their own campaigns. I think what Peter is getting at is what's next. Yes, okay, we're saying that we have a government in power. This government happens to be the SKNLP, who is not living up to their mandates, their manifestos, their promises. Fine, that's a fact. We can match up what is happening with what was promised. The question is, what is next?
And Rollis, I don't disagree with you on what is next. In fact, I was just clarifying points that Peter would have made in the past, having listened to some of his interviews. I just wanted Peter, when he is speaking on platforms, to be very clear with the information that he gives.
No, I'm telling the information that I give because when it comes down to it, of the 60 years that you've been in existence, how many of those years has Palm been in government alone, on its own?
Well, Peter, the People's Action Movement, as I said before,
right, and then don't answer the question, because then you can ask the same question about Labour. Of the 100 years Labour has been in existence, how much of that time have they been in office on their own? And that is the point. So if it is that people are looking for a party that can get in and stay in on its own and win and achieve things and do things and so on without squabbling, there you have it.
And Peter,
so I'm not knocking
the
you.
point, so it's not lost that in 1984 and 1989, the People's Action Movement won 6 out of the 8 seats and could have formed a government on its own, but chose to honor its partnership with the NRP at that time and to be a part of a unified government. So if it is that you're saying that the People's Action Movement has been the party open to cooperation and togetherness, well, I think you have made that point quite clear.
Okay, fair enough. I won't make it again.
And as we look at the way forward, there are certain things that we are not looking at. because things was said and things was done. And until we get over that hurdle, we'll always looking like we're spinning top in mud. There's a level of trust somewhere along the line that has been bridged. And it's easy to say that people can come together and think for the elections. But then the same people who you're asking to vote for you, are you trying to fool them and try to pretend that all is well just because you want to get into government? Are you going to start off by trying to fool people to say you'll try to unite when you entrust each other? That's something we have to put out there also, the level of trust.
So you're saying, Troy, that for there to be cooperation, partnership, or relationship, these things are built on trust, and the issue of trust still stands over the heads of the two parties.
The issue of trust, I mean, if you want, people want the team unity. People of St. Kitts and Nevis want team unity. But I'm not sure who they want to lead team unity because they're being burnt. Team unity.
I mean, why not let each party do their best then? Let each party fill their slate. Let each party get out in the communities and let each party do their best.
Well, I can't speak for no other party but the People's Action Movement. We're already out there. We're already going out speaking to people. We're already doing what we're supposed to do because we're 60 years old. We've been there already. So we're already doing that. And we're getting it from the people. We are listening to them. And we understand what they want. Most persons who we speak to who are diehard PAM supporters, they are the ones who are echoing this level of trust. That is something that we cannot overlook. We can't force nothing on people and then end up with a result that we end up in 2022.
And of course, I mean, I have my own personal views on the topic. Of course, at the same time, I stand as the deputy leader of a party, and so it is based on not my view. It will be based on what the party's view, what the people's view at the time. And so these are really matters of concerns that would have to be addressed. And basically, as the time progresses, as I said before, I know that our political leader has indicated that her focus right now is to build the People's Action Movement and make sure that it's ready for the next general election.
I mean, I don't want to belabor this thing, but I just feel that Release has suggested for both parties to go out there and, do their hardest to get their team elected. So you have two powerful trains running at each other, and you will destroy each other, and the beneficiary will be someone else. I think that it will become harder for you to negotiate any kind of an accommodation in a situation where you have entrenched positions in terms of seats that people want. So let's say that both parties nominate 8 candidates for the 8 seats on St. Kitts. So you have 8 for Labour, 8 for PLP, and 8 for PAM. What you basically will have is a feast for Labour, because it will be harder for then people within those two camps to negotiate any kind of accommodation, because I am named as the candidate for number 4. What's the likelihood that I am saying, okay, I'm going to give up my candidacy for number 4 so that somebody from another party can run a candidate in number 4, because I feel that I have the best chance. And that's why I'm saying that I think a priority ought to be how you're going to structure your agreement, or will you have one at all? And I think that people have every right to believe that if, to see a party going in without an agreement, they say it's unrealistic. Mm-hmm. And, they deal with it accordingly. So
yeah,
that's
I
my
mean,
sense.
as time progresses and as the parties do what they have to do, I guess that would have to be a conversation for the future, looking at what is before us. Of course, again, as I said before, our political leader has made it clear that her focus is building People's Action Movement. But we have known in the past that the People's Action Movement is a party that puts people first and cooperates. It's a welcoming party, one that is open to cooperation as long as it's in the best interest of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Amen to that.
Well, AZARD, the future is now, because time is already running out.
Yes, yes. So true, so true. The future is now. And I think discussions like these that we have here now, this evening, help to propel conversation, help to propel and get the thoughts out there, the people thinking about the possibilities. Because the reality is that the Labour Party is not performing. And the reality is that we, on whatever side of the fence we see ourselves, would have to be prepared if the election is to be called soon to ensure that we are best suited to represent the people of St. Kitts and Nevis.
And another thing, as I go look at the situation on the ground, that the Labour Party hasn't won the last election when there wasn't any plane landing. So you got to look at the other constituency.
The overseas vote.
That's the strength of the Labour Party at this moment. The overseas vote. Is not on the ground here. So they don't really show much attention to their performance here. Because as long as they put out something out there, that's why you see everything is a photo op. So you send it overseas in that constituency. And when you do that now, the people glad and come back and feel like that everything is progressing well in this nation when it's not.
Yeah. I would support the argument, and that's another one of my pet issues as well, the size of the overseas vote in St. Kitts and Nevis. And clearly Labour has a good command of it. They know where to find the overseas voters. They have the resources to bring them home. And it's going to make winning any election in the future very, very difficult. I felt that was also a huge failure when the People's Action Movement and PLP were in office, that they never got this overseas voting thing brought under control, because it's going to make it very, very difficult to win elections when you have these kinds of margins and you have access to all of these voters from overseas. I think in Nevis it plays an even bigger part, to be honest. And I'm curious to know, when I saw borders closed and I saw the size of the majority that Team Unity won with, it really made me wonder about this overseas vote, because it makes a huge difference when it's not around.
Yeah, it really does. And as indicated, the overseas vote, and they have access to the resources, and they have been using their resources to ensure that a number of their supporters come and vote in various constituencies, and often that sways the outcome in the constituencies, something that we have to be very mindful of. And of course, Rolise, you want to say something?
To be fair, every party has their overseas voters. To be fair, I just want to say that. Because, Pam, you have your planes too. No?
I when it comes to if we look at the elections in the past, we look at 2015 and we look at 2022. I think the comparison, when you look at the persons and the overseas vote and the reach and getting persons from overseas into St. Kitts, I think that clearly there is a huge advantage when it comes to the overseas vote and the Labour Party, if we look at the elections that have been in the past.
Well, as that maybe it's time for a conversation on the overseas vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, at the end of the day, it's the people who live here will have to live with the government. And any political party, I think, will look at it and realize that you have an advantage or disadvantage. You will play to your advantage. So if the overseas voters are at your disadvantage, you're supposed to educate the people them here and try to build a conversation to put pressure on who have the advantage.
I think to what we can do and what we ought to do is to reach out to the overseas voters as well in our own capacities, because they are citizens out there, and if they are going to vote, I think our message should be sent outside of St. Kitts and Nevis to the overseas voters in the hope that they will make the best decision moving forward. Because things aren't going well here.
Well, as I said, look at the voters list. The voters list is almost as big as the population.
Mm-hmm. And
Again,
No?
and
Just a second.
again, because there was a time before that was the case, it was cleaned up, and now we're back to that same situation again within 10 years.
Yes.
I don't know this this idea of a clinical reach out to overseas voters, and I don't get it. I don't think that overseas voters are motivated in the same way that local voters are. Because overseas voters, they come in, they're mercenaries, essentially. They're brought in to do a job, and they do the job, for the most part. So that one is a very, very difficult hill to climb. And I do feel that it comes down to a situation, whenever you do get back into office, you have to try to ensure that you close that door. But canvassing in the overseas communities, I don't know if it's going to make a difference, because those overseas voters are motivated differently.
Yes.
And I think it's a question of finding resources to match in some instances, but it strikes me also as being an absolute waste of resources, to essentially pick up plane tickets and pay for people to come home. In Barbados, we've been having conversations about electoral reform, and one of the things that we've been suggesting is, how do you incorporate this large diaspora in a way that does not throw off the local efforts? And we come up with a formula that suggests that if you had overseas constituency, and this is something that Ralph Gonzalez spoke about, so you can have a constituency of the diaspora. It's done in Italy, where all of the overseas voters vote in one place. That to me makes a difference. But the current system that you guys have now is it can be chaotic, because this domicile thing is so flexible that persons can, mix and match and shift and change, where they live and where they come from or where they're voting, in a way that is opportunistic.
Yes.
So, it's a recipe for trouble, to be honest.
Indeed, there are some structures, and if we are going to look at some improvements that we could make in the electoral system, I think, and all across parties, I think there's definitely some need for reform in the Constitution, even as it relates to the federal government and the NIA. For some point in time, we've had the federal government, we've had the Nevis Island Administration, and there is no St. Kitts Island Administration. There is no St. Kitts or St. Christopher identity. And so these are somewhat discussions to be had. We have a situation where it is that persons in the local Nevis elections could run again in the federal, and whether or not that is something that the country will want to see change. And so there are a lot of conversations I think we could have on the Constitution, electoral reform, but they need to be had. And obviously this conversation isn't coming from those who are in power now. It has to be therefore coming from we on the ground, and to agitate, because the Constitution that we have from 1983, although a good one, is not without need for change as our society develops. As our society develops, laws are amended, and so too the Constitution could be amended to ensure that there is smooth sailing, because we already know, based on what we have, that there are some hard places whereby the Constitution is inflexible, and some things that need to be amended.
Yeah, that's true.
But
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Peter.
go ahead. No, I mean, I'm agreeing with you. Constitutional change is something which, and electoral reform, there are things that have to be approached with a bit of sensitivity, looking at it developmentally. And this is not the environment in which you're going to be able to achieve a whole lot. But I do agree with you
Right.
that those are some questions that have to be asked. The idea of persons elected at both levels is something that also seems a bit odd. But then you look at the size of the federation and you ask yourself, well, maybe you should do that because the federation is so small. But then it kind of puts petitions at a disadvantage because novitians can be represented twice, locally and then federally, while you can only be elected once, which is a bit of I think it's a bit of a disadvantage that you have.
Yeah, and I think oftentimes what political parties do is think about the next election and not really think about how can we make some substantial change as it relates to, again, these reforms. Electoral reform is something I've heard since I was a youth in youth parliament.
True.
And to this point in time, no real reform. I look at even discussions of even the Privy Council, the CCJ. Is it that we want to remain under the Privy Council, looking at our judicial quote unquote independence? When we look at perhaps St. Kitts and Nevis remaining as a constitutional monarch, or should we make steps to become a republic? These are conversations that I think could be had, and I think that perhaps those persons in power could lead on the discussion. But if they're not, it's persons like you and me who perhaps would have to lead those conversations.
Maybe Peter can give us some insight into the advantages of being a republic, if any.
If any. I don't really know that there are advantages in that kind of way. And the thing with St. Kitts and the Privy Council, look, the immunity won the election in which it got into office the first time, largely because of a Privy Council decision. And a Privy Council decision that reversed a decision of a lower court, a regional court, a Caribbean court, which not the CCJ, but a local petition court that said that Labour had the right to do what they were trying to do. Against that background, I would have been very surprised if the successful Team Unity government would have prioritized going to the CCJ, because they got in because of the bravery of the Privy Council. And when I look back at the decision of the Privy Council, it was a bit of a reach. Up to now, I don't know that the judgment has been published, and a lot of people have said that it just seemed as though the Privy Council was willing to take a position based on what they thought was fair, as opposed to the question of legality, which seemed to be a bit dodgy. So I don't know. That's my thing. I don't believe the Privy Council is going to happen. It would be great if it did, but I didn't think that it would have in a hurry. The idea of becoming a republic is a good thing. I think that everyone should do it, but in an environment where people are going to say to you, "But what's in it for me?" It's a very difficult question to answer, because yeah, you can leave the queen, or the king, but ultimately, it's not the kind of thing where there's a benefit in that. There's milk and honey flowing on one side and nothing flowing on the other side. Um, since Barbados has become a republic, we haven't become more prosperous, but we don't swear an allegiance to the queen, her heirs and successors, and to me, that's enough for me. We don't swear an allegiance to a monarch, and it does give you a sense of pride that you're not standing under a Union Jack. But for some people, that's not enough. For some people, they say, we're going to get more cruise ships coming, we're going to get more money, what are the benefits and whatnot. And I don't know. That's a conversation you can have. The other point that was being made about electoral reform, I was actually involved in the initiative for electoral reform when it last happened under the Labour government. I was a consultant to the government at the time. And what fascinated me about it is that when you had conversations with people around the country, and there were quite a few, there was no clarity that came from either PAM or Labour regarding this overseas vote. And it was clear to me that both PAM and Labour wanted it sometimes and didn't want it sometimes. And I don't think that either party was able to give a clear position on whether they did or didn't want it. And I found that fascinating. I think at the level of the people didn't really want it. So if you did a public opinion poll among the people, the majority of people said no, they don't want it. But if you look at the political parties seem to feel that this is a tool that they can use to get into office and a tool that they can use to help them. And they were pretty certain that as much as Palm complained about it, when the rubber hit the road, a lot of the Palm supporters, Palm representatives, were saying that that they're comfortable that they can make it work for them. And therein lies the problem. So you did have reform, and the reform that you had coming out of that entrenched the overseas vote in a very, very real and tangible way. You introduced the concept of a domicile. That was also part of that initiative. So you did have reform, but the reforms, in my view, helped to make the situation, locally, pretty much a lot worse than it was before. So probably the reforms that weren't particularly helpful.
Pam did had a position. Pam had a residency clause of 3 months. They did say that. That was their position.
Yes.
The challenge with the residency clause, though, is that
that was Pam's position. Pam didn't say that you cannot come back and vote, but it was saying you should be in the island for at least 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, to me, that would have been a little fair to people who live in here.
Because I think the concern when it comes to that was, what is the definition of domicile? I think that was the real crux of the matter when it comes to that. What is the real definition of domicile? Because
it's deliberately vague.
It talks about being domiciled.
Yeah. Right, and it was deliberately vague. And I think that the vagueness of it was helpful to people who wanted the flexibility of being able to say, look, if I need a voter, can I insert them here and insert them there? So it was vague. It was deliberately vague.
Yes.
And my brother there, I take your point that the PALM may have had this position, and maybe I didn't hear it being expressed as forcefully, but I made the point that in most of the islands there's a residency requirement of 3 months. That's observed more in the breach and everything else. The challenge is that if you have a residency requirement of 3 months and you have people voting, how do you challenge them in a real and effective way? It's extremely difficult to police. So in the case of Barbados, we have that residency requirement, and a lot of people came in and vote. The other thing that I would ask people also who would say to me, you need to have a 6 months residency requirement. What does a person who's resident in St. Kitts and Nevis look like in a real sense? Because I myself am in a peculiar position now where I don't exactly know where I'm resident. Because on the face of it, I don't really qualify for residency anywhere. The reality is that I can't vote in France where I live. Because while I live there, I am not a resident there and I'm not a citizen, so I'm not eligible to vote there. And technically speaking, I shouldn't vote in Barbados because I need to be resident for 3 months before the last election is held. So I'm saying realistically, the concept of living in a place is something which has evolved in a way that's significant. In Barbados now, we have something called the welcome stamp. So technically speaking, a person who comes to Barbados on a welcome stamp and is in Barbados for 3 months before the election and they come from a Commonwealth country, under the laws of Barbados, that person can vote. So let's say that AZARD is working remotely from Barbados for 3 months prior to an election. Because he's a Commonwealth citizen, he can vote in the election in Barbados, but he's not Bajan. But that's the law of Barbados, and it says you can do that. So this residency thing is something which, in the world that we live in now, is extremely difficult to pin down. As I said, and I think I'm living proof of that because I work in one place, live in another place, and it is something which can create some interesting scenarios.
Yeah.
And it's not that unusual. There are a lot of people like that.
But something like that still will deter them fly-by-night voters. Because if
the quantity that y'all have in St. Kitts is special. I don't know that I've seen it anywhere else in the Caribbean where you actually have plane loads.
Right.
The election that Labour lost, it was about 12 or 13 charters. It was a lot. So
Well, based on a message I received, we won in 2015 when Labour had 23 jets from
yeah,
North
23
America.
charters. Right.
And we said Pam only had 3. Yes, so it we still were able, and that's growing from that point. We know that there is some discussion as it relates to boundary changes, and there is talk on the ground that the Labour administration is set to change the boundaries before the next general election. And so that perhaps will be a area of discussion in the very near future if that is happening in fact.
But, boundary changes might affect certain things, but if the political parties do what they're supposed to do and win the hearts of the voters,
Yes.
right? Boundary changes shouldn't be something that will threaten any political party.
Because there is a popular saying that boundaries don't vote, people do.
But I mean, what political parties supposed to be doing, right, is representing the people, whether you're in government or you're in opposition. You're supposed to be echoing what the people are saying when you're in opposition. You're supposed to take the people's fight to the government. And until the opposition parties start to do that, then you shouldn't frighten about boundary changes.
Yes.
You're supposed to be able to have a groundswell with support. Because the Labour administration is the least popular administration in a long time.
Yes.
Right? People are frustrated. And as your two guests is saying, right, they're thinking about the opposition, they are fractured, they're pulling against each other.
Yes.
For reasons most of us know. But yet, right, as a member of the People's Action Movement, I also say put people first. It's all about people.
Yes.
It's all about people. And you have to echo the pain of the people. You got to show empathy. Feel the people's pain until people realize that you are doing that. You're going to be out in the wilderness.
Yeah. And again, we have, as a party, we have started the rebuilding. We have started the listening tours under the political leader. And of course, there is more to be done. I know that based on what has been said, there would be announcement of candidates. I think a lot of persons are excited about that. And, we have to ensure that, as you said, we become representatives of the people.
Less politician.
Less politicians, more representatives.
Right.
Yes. And Troy, that there's an activity by the People's Action Movement that is coming up. You want to speak on about it?
Well, as I was saying about representing the people, as the People's Action Movement realized that there's an increase in vehicular traffic accident.
Yes.
So we as a party come together and said we think that we need to go to the Lord in prayer to ask for safe roads, ask the Lord's blessing on the roads in St. Kitts and Nevis. So we organizing a day of prayer, and that event is slated for the 7th of February. That's Friday afternoon.
Yes.
From 4:30 p.m. We have a list of persons who we would like to invite. I think some of the invitation already gone out. Who ain't get the invitation, it's on his way. And to a dear panelist there, Ms. Willis, we have the chairperson of the PLP. We have an invitation for them if it's not already gone out. We have the chairperson for NRP and CCM. We have the Evangelical Association, the Rotary Club of St. Kitts, the Rotary Club of La Amiga, the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the Christian Council. We have the churches, senior pastors, the Antioch Baptist Church and the Baptist churches, the Catholic churches, and we try not to leave out anybody. I think I see the Labour Party also is here for invite. And the Ministry of Ecclesiastic Affairs is also on the list for invited. So we are inviting everybody to come out and just send up the praise to the Father above and let the blessings come down for safer roads. We have lost a number of lives, unfortunately, through road fatality, and it's sad for a small nation like St. Kitts and Nevis. I think we have lost too many souls in a short space of time on the road. So as the People's Action Movement continue to do its civic duty as a political party and a member of the society, we're doing our part to keep the society together. So we are asking all who are listening to come out. It's open to everybody. It might be organized by a political party, but it's non-political. Mm-hmm. We try to put the politics away from this thing and just be a moment of praise for the nation, healing. That's what we need. We believe that it's time for St. Kitts and Nevis to come together. We are too divided. Mm-hmm. And we need to come together and just pray for the nation, pray for healing. Yes. And I have a four-member panel who is responsible for that. We have Jusila Kati, we have Miss Wilkins, and the political leader also is part of the committee, and I happen to be the chairperson of the committee.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So thank you, Troy. Release, Peter, as we conclude this evening's program, is there anything that you like to say?
It was a good first start conversation for 2025. I would love to have a 3-panel discussion with representatives from each political party in St. Kitts and Nevis, if possible. So if you can organize that, that'll be good. And as the deputy leader of the People's Action Movement, I look forward to hearing more from you regarding the way forward, because as we agreed, the future is now, and people want to know what is really going to happen, because what we are seeing right now is a settling. It might not be the best. They might get 250 instead of 500, but they settle with that and just moving forward. So unless there is some agitation and a positive outlook from the political parties, as if something will really happen, then people will keep settling, Azad. And that is just the reality. I think the energy it takes right now is just too much. So if the political parties aren't doing that job, and getting the people excited, then it will be what it will be. We will see voter apathy at its highest, perhaps, and people will stay home as they did in the last election. And of course, we'll have a default winner. So the leaders have to decide soon on the way forward for St. Kitts and Nevis.
I note your point, and I do agree. We do have to create that energy. Peter,
I enjoyed the conversation, and thanks for inviting me to participate. I do agree that there needs to be more of this kind of conversation, and there needs to be a level of activism on the part of the leaders to kind of pilot the way. It occurred to me when I was listening to Release that we did not talk about the Nevis reality at all, and the way that factors in to this whole conversation. And perhaps that's another type of issue that we should pick up, because it is also entirely possible that the next government could be decided in Nevis, and that is something that hasn't happened before, but certainly it could be. So that's whole other conversation that we probably need to start thinking about, because that's a dynamic as well. But I do agree that the fundamentals. Look, people are not happy. People across the region are not happy. I think that things are pretty hard in St. Kitts and Nevis. You have a no tax environment, which is a position that both political parties in St. Kitts and Nevis have held to. Interestingly enough, both political parties have wanted to maintain that no tax environment. And in an environment like that, inflation is very, very difficult to control if all of your taxation is consumption tax or value added tax. So it means that because of the choice that you have made not to use direct taxation, you're essentially at the mercy of price increases, which are, increasing rampantly. So I understand why. But I also understand that it's something that bothers people, because if you have $100 and you go to the grocery and you notice that every time you go to the grocery with $100 and even with less and less, it comes to a point where you're going to say, look, we need creative ideas to be able to deal with these things. And that, is the kind of thing that we should talk about. But the other thing is that regionally, tourism has been growing. I don't know if it has been growing in St. Kitts at the same rate. But across the region, countries have been saying that they've been having very, very good tourism years. And I think that that's something which could benefit us in terms of tourism growth in St. Kitts and Nevis. I don't know what the reality has been. But, things like that form the basis of making people's life better. So if it isn't happening, then there's some serious questions that have to be answered. So Azad, I wish you well, and I wish your People's Action Movement well as you guys press on. I know that you probably say that I press you too much, but on certain issues. But fundamentally, I'm an independent analyst. I don't particularly have a horse in the race. So my thing is, this is what I do to kind of stimulate ideas and get people moving. But I do wish you guys well, and I think that the fact that you now have a new leadership and you're slightly more inspired, and you're saying to looking to go forward and leave the past behind. I think that's a good start. So let's see what comes of it. So again, all the best for your 60th year in existence, and I wish you all the future is brighter than the past has been.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Release. Thank you, Troy, for being a part of the program, Unfiltered. Again, these conversations like these, we need to have tough conversations, regardless of where we sit on the political fence. We all are citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. And Peter, I think I included you, but you know what I mean.
That's cool. Yeah.
We're all citizens here.
I got a piece of me in every Caribbean island.
But you know what I mean. We're all citizens, and by right we want what is best for our country, and that should be it. And so discussions like these need to be had, and discussions like these get our people motivated, get our people thinking about the possibilities of the future. And of course, the People's Action Movement continues to be the party that puts people first as we celebrate our 60th anniversary, and as we go forth under the leadership of Natasha Gray Brooks. I do wish St. Kitts and Nevis well, and as we continue to go from strength to strength, we build a party that has been serving the people of St. Kitts and Nevis for over 60 years. So thank you guys so much for being a part of it and accepting the invitation. Those persons who have listened, those persons who have shared your comments, I want to say thank you so much. And join me next week on another episode of Unfiltered.
Okay. Bye.
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 Lord, this can end in a serious dilemma. Now that the country been run by labor, this pure mayhem, scandal, disorder. With this labor party in power, is this a social club in disguise? Or some kind of criminal enterprise? What a menace to society. This administration turning out to be the PM got a so-called advisor, telling people how to get away with murder. It's non-stop attack on the treasury with the daddy and mommy sorry. This labor bunch shot to the core, lacking integrity, that's for sure. Economy stalled, hard life crippling, we a collective menace to society. It's like his own chief and no Indian. It's like lunatics running the asylum without a plan, ideas or structure. It's the people who left to suffer. No pop, no peace, fair unemployment. No money for bills, much less enjoyment. Total advantage, that's we fake. Under these enemies of the state. AAG, can he get liar? He really a pamper plain labor, third politician now for sure. Going from door to door in number 4, law and order not a priority. No one in charge of the nation's safety. DAG join the cult of the greedy. He just a menace, 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 menace to society. Government buildings, well them the worst. We infrastructure seem like it costs. Electricity and water walk with the moon. Every month you hear the fix coming soon. Under labor life for this pure misery. Oppression, depression and tyranny. This gang is a menace, 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 menace to society. Life in SKN, this ain't no joke. Like the whole country growing up is smoke. While Mr. Smiley and 10 money one busy fighting, jockeying for position. Lord have mercy upon all of we with this menace, menace, menace to society. Government buildings, well them the worst. We infrastructure seem like it costs. Electricity and water walk with the moon. Every month you hear the fix coming soon. Under labor life for this pure misery. Oppression, depression and tyranny. This gang is a menace, 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 menace to society. On SKN, this ain't no joke. Like the whole country growing up in smoke. While Mr. Smiley and 10 money one busy fighting, jockeying for position. Lord have mercy upon all of we with this menace, menace, menace to society. Lord, SKN in a serious dilemma. Now that the country been run by labor. This pure mayhem, scandal, disorder. With this labor party in power. Is this a social club in disguise? Or some kind of criminal enterprise? What a menace to society. This administration turning out to be. The PM got a so-called advisor, telling people how to get away with murder. It's non-stop attack on the treasury with paper daddy and man mixari. This labor bunch shot to the core, lacking integrity, that's for sure. Economy stalled, hard life crippling. We a collective menace, menace, menace to society. It's like his own chief and no Indian. It's like lunatics running the asylum without a plan, ideas or structure. It's the people who left to suffer. No pop, no peace, fair unemployment. No money for bills, much less enjoyment. Total advantage, that's we fake. Under these enemies of the state. AAG, can he get liar? He really a pamper plain labor, third politician now for sure. Going from door to door in number 4, law and order not a priority. No one in charge of the nation's safety. DAG join the cult of the greedy. He just a menace, 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 menace to society. Government buildings, well them the worst. We infrastructure seem like it costs. Electricity and water walk with the moon. Every month you hear the fix coming soon. Under labor life for this pure misery. Oppression, depression and tyranny. This gang is a menace, 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 menace to society. Life in SKN, this ain't no joke. Like the whole country growing up in smoke. While Mr. Smiley and 10 money one busy fighting, jockeying for position. Lord have mercy upon all of we with this menace, menace, menace to society. Government buildings, well them the worst. We infrastructure seem like it costs. Electricity and water walk with the moon. Every month you hear the fix coming soon. Under labor life for this pure misery. Oppression, depression and tyranny. This gang is a menace, 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 menace to where the labor Jezebel. You want to bamba? You want to chill with the big boys? Blanche say he looking for Pamela. Swear up and down that Pam dead for sure. So we jump ship and join the same labor. Who done kicking through the door? Boy, you nothing but a political football. Drunk and late. I find that mighty strange and suspicious. For when hard life had you by your color, you didn't know exactly where to find us. Boy, Pam ain't gone no way. We here to stay, we have plenty work to do. Claim Boy Pam have to save the nation from vampires, lost souls and traitors like you. For 30 pieces of silver, this Judah selling out his soul. Membership in the labor posse, well that's the ultimate goal. He's singing about camel and chicken, but he's labor donkey for sure. They gon' ride him, then put him out to pasture when they can't ride him anymore. So keep looking for Pam Blanche, you most certainly gon' need us again. For all skin teeth, they love you see face but not heart, and the devil ain't got no friend. Blanche boy, I see you dilemma, and I know why you write your song. For you tired of trying to fit in where you clearly don't belong. The whole country know Pam's the real answer for peace and prosperity. And you know now more than ever that labor mean chaos and misery. So you're really pleading with Pam, now you in a jam to rescue you again. But Pam cares for all, oh, will answer your call. Blanche boy, we are feeling your shame and your pain. Real donkey, cha! You want to bamba? You want to chill with the big boys? Now you dey run kitty kitty, you dey run kata kata, no drink water drop cup. You want to bamba? You want to chill with the big boys? Now you dey run kitty kitty, you dey run kata kata, no drink water drop cup. Blanche yeah, we looking for Pamela. See me ya, see me ya, see me Almela. See me ya. So up and don't get Pam dead for sure. So we jump ship and join the same labor. Who done kick him through the door? Boy, you nothing but a political football. Drunk on labor with Kool-Aid and wine. Labor the wrong boy, labor the wind up toy, till they turn Pam you behind. Glenn boy, you say you looking for Pam. See me ya, see me ya. I find that life is strange and suspicious. For when hard life had you by your collar, you didn't know exactly where to find us. Boy, bang on no way. We here to stay, we have plenty work to do. Glenn boy, Pam have to save the nation from vampires, lost souls and traitors like you. Boy, you say you looking for Pam. See me ya, see me ya. I find that mighty strange and suspicious. For when hard life had you by your collar, you didn't know exactly where to find us. Boy, Pam ain't gone no way. We here to stay, we have plenty work to do. Glenn boy, Pam have to save the nation from vampires, lost souls and traitors like you. You want to bamba, you want to chill with the big boys. Now you the run, get it, run, kata kata, check what a drop cup. You want to bamba, you want to chill with the big boys. Now you the run, get it, run, kata kata, check what a drop cup. You want to bamba, you want to bamba, you want to chill with the big boys. Now you the run, get it, run, kata kata, check what a drop cup. You want to bamba, you want to chill with the big boys. Now you the run, get it, run, kata kata, check what a drop cup. You want to bamba, you want to chill with the big boys. Now you the run, get it, run, kata kata, check what a drop cup. You want to bamba, you want to chill with the big boys. Now you the run, get it, run, kata kata, drink what a drop cup. Want to bamba, you want to chill with the big boys. Now you the run, kitty kitty, you the run, kata kata, no drink water drop cup. To the